you never really think that it'll happen to you, you know? What is up, the world? Awesome Schrock here with Caleb Yoder. Today we're going to tell you a pretty scary story. We've basically told nobody this story. Chances are if you're hearing this, like, you're one of the first people to ever hear this story. Bear with us. If this feels like it's dragging, just like stay with us and we'll wrap the whole thing up. You're going to want to hear the end of it.
So we have this camping trip that we go about 60 or 80 people every year. The campsite is pretty close to the lake. We headed down the lake.
So the bank comes up and then there's about a 6-foot drop into the water. On the bank above there was this tree that had fallen down into the water, and we were standing out there on the log. It was nice and warm, it was breezy, the water was choppy, and I casted, and somehow I think what happened is my line, there was like a branch or Caleb's pole or something, I don't remember exactly what happened. My line went around it and it like caught, and then it like still flung my lure, but it snapped it off. But your lure just like flies out into the water. Anyway, that happened and my frog just like flew out into the water. I would say probably probably about 40 to 50 yards. And so I'm just like watching this thing just floating out there in the water. Caleb just like jokingly, he's like, hey, like, why don't you go swim out and get it? And I was like, yeah, swim out and get it. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, yeah, you know what, actually swim.
I started getting serious. I'm like, yeah, go get it, come on. Your lure, your best lure is floating away.
I like hopped down into the water and felt it, and it was nice and warm. So I like go and like wade out into the water, and I started looking for my lure because I couldn't see it anymore. And what I didn't realize was there was a current that was pulling the lure away from me and out to my right. And I remember looking out there and like just seeing something floating. Like the water was really choppy, it was hard to see. Like as I waded out, I remember being like, Caleb, don't take any pictures of me or anything. And of course he did. He took a picture with my cell phone, and I'm so glad he did. Like, yeah, whoa. And I started swimming out there, and I got about halfway out and I started feeling, you know, just a little bit tired, like in your arms and stuff. And it was just that thing of like, oh, well, I'll make it. I mean, nothing's ever gone wrong before. Like, it just didn't even enter my mind that something could happen. So I swim out there and I'm like 10 feet from the lure. And that's when I actually realized that it's a lure. That's my lure instead of just a stick. I grab it and I just like turn around immediately and just start swimming back. And I could see Caleb kind of standing on the bank, and it was a long ways. It was, by that time the lure had been pulled out. I remember just getting so tired, like my arms and shoulders like just going slower and slower. And I remember calling out to Caleb, and I remember saying, Caleb, I might need your help. Your brain does a funny thing. Whenever you acknowledge that you might not make it, that you might actually fail, your instinct kicks in and it automatically switches into survival mode. And that's what happened with me. As soon as I called out for Caleb, I said, Caleb, I might need your help. And the first time he actually didn't hear me, and so I called out louder. And so I almost like yelled it out, like, Caleb, I might need your help. And then like instantly, just like panic, just instantly. It was like you jumping in the water. It just rushes over you in a half of a second. And there was nothing I could do. I'm like, I started hyperventilating, and you're just like, just barely like, and you start treading water, you stop swimming confidently. And I remember like just thinking in my mind, I'm like, stop panicking. Like, if you want to live, stop panicking. Like, breathe normally. Stuff does not easily rattle me. And when I say that, like, I mean that. I can stand like heights, anything, like I am not rattled. I've been in many dangerous situations before, and I've never lost my cool, ever. And this whole time, like, I'm just like frantically, like, just calling out to Caleb, and I remember just saying, like, help me, and like that weird, like, help me! Voice, like, you're just like, instinct just kicks in, there's like nothing you can do. It's the scariest thing I've ever experienced. Anyway, so I'm like literally screaming out, like, yelling as loud as I can, just like, help me, I'm not gonna make it. Like,
when I first heard Austin calling for help, I think we play a lot of jokes on each other like all the time.
All the time.
So when I first heard it, I was like, oh, he's not serious, like he's just playing a joke on me. That's what I thought for a little bit, but I started hearing like real panic in his voice. I ran out into the water, and I remember calling, I was like, don't panic, Austin. I felt at that time, I felt really, I mean, nothing bad could really happen. Like, we could easily get back. Like,
that mindset, because, like, just go ahead and get
I hadn't panicked at all at that time. I just remember thinking, like, from the time he called to the time I got out here, he really was not making much progress. I remember thinking, like, why wasn't he swimming more towards me?
I remember my arms getting really tired, just moving slower and slower, like just the more I did, just going slower and slower, slowly sinking down into the water. I was getting to the point where like it was like just slowly just like going up and up and up on my face. And like I'm just reaching out just as far as I can to get breath.
The worst feeling ever.
Yeah. Caleb starts swimming out to me and I remember thinking like, okay, like I'm gonna die. If he doesn't get out here, I'm going to die. Just the week before, I remember my mom saying that these two families went camping and they found like their two sons had drowned. And they found them the next day and I'm like, what? Like this is literally gonna happen. They're gonna find us a day and a half later. When he was probably 10 to 15 feet out, I stopped seeing him, which sounds really weird. But I was at the point of exhaustion that I stopped understanding stuff. I started just like, the only thing I was focusing on was arm down, arm down, arm down, take a breath. I would literally have to turn my head all the way sideways and up just to get it above water. I took like a few more hard strokes, like everything I had, and I just like reached up, just take a giant gasp of air as hard as I could, and I just like, that was it. I gave up. And I just like, when I landed, and Caleb grabbed me right then. Like, if he had not grabbed me and like put his arm around me, like I wouldn't have come back up. That was everything I had. I remember thinking like, I'm done. I gave up. As I breathed and let go, I was like, Caleb, if you're not here, see you later.
One of the first things that crossed my mind, people who are drowning, when you're panicking, you really barely have control of your brain.
Yeah, literally.
And like, I remember hearing the panic in his voice and just thinking, he's panicking so badly, he's gonna grab my arms just to keep himself up and we're both gonna go down. Like,
I never understood how that could even be a thing. The thing with drowning is death is literally inches from your mouth. Like it's lapping at your chin trying to get in. Like that's what it feels like. And so I can understand how people do that because I can still control my arms and stuff. I couldn't control like what I was saying or my breathing. And so I remember consciously thinking like, don't grab him. And he said, he's like, put your hand on my shoulder. He's like, don't climb on my back. I was like on his shoulder a little bit and like swimming with this arm, like kicking with my legs. It was like you have a black sheet of darkness and like despair, and then somebody like just pokes a little pinprick in the center of it. And you can almost see that light like starting to come through just a little bit, thinking like actually like we might actually make it.
Like soon after I reached him, after he was starting to see some hope, I started panicking then. Like I was trying as hard as I could to keep myself from him, but
we were probably 40 yards from the shore, like we swam another 5 or 10 yards. All of a sudden like Caleb was like, get off my back, in that like high like voice, like that panic mode. And so like I got off, like let go and like just started swimming, and like Caleb started swimming. We're both swimming like side by side. Like I remember just being like, I can't do this, like I can't stay above water. I remember him saying like, okay, like get back on, like okay, I've rested enough.
2 seconds just makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
like,
and I would like rest for a little bit, and then I like try to swim on my own for like 5 seconds, and like just like done, like I had to hold on to him again. So we did that kind of off and on, helping each other, like resting, like I would get off and that sort of thing. We swam like that for probably 15 yards, probably like that. Close enough that we could see the shore, just like it was right there. It was really close. It's the most despairing feeling, literally. I kind of swam around Caleb, like I kind of went behind him. I was gonna rest my left arm because obviously my right arm had been on his shoulder. My left arm was doing all the work. So I was gonna rest my left arm and like use my right arm. And I remember getting like right behind him, like all of a sudden just like I hear bubbles and like choking and gurgling, and Caleb disappears. Like just a rock pulled him down or something. And would you say that was when like you were done? Like
I was done for a little bit then.
Yeah.
Like
that was basically his breaking point, and we completely switched roles. Like at that point I like swam down. I remember like pulling him back up and like kind of supporting him, and he's like swimming, and I remember hearing him just like spitting out water out of his mouth.
It's crazy how fast we were flipping, like
yeah,
because like flipping rolls,
like one of us would rest and
yeah,
like
for a little bit,
and then we'd switch. Like I remember
like
thinking like just some outlandishly dark thoughts and just like crazy stuff. Like Stuff I'm glad I wasn't saying out loud. I'd say we're probably 10 yards, 10 to 15 yards. And this is the absolute worst part. There was like 3 foot long grass on the bottom. And we could feel the grass like hitting our feet, but it wasn't close enough that we could touch. Like, I thought I knew despair until I thought that. Like, cause at that moment, that's when you're most exhausted and you're so close, but yet you're so far away. The shore is like right there, but like you're so close. Like, it's just so many conflicting thoughts. One thing to keep in mind is this whole time we're swimming against that current that I talked about that pulled my lure out.
You just thought you were a really good swimmer on the way out.
Yeah. But yeah, when we were probably 10 feet out, at that point we both kind of just like separated and just like swam as hard as we could. But yet it's only enough just barely to keep you afloat. We were so close that we're like, we can actually do this, like let's do this. I remember my feet like hitting the sand and like, you talk about the best feeling in the world right there. Like, you've got no idea. Best feeling in the world. I remember feeling that and like just like crumpling on my hands and knees and just like pulling myself up, like just enough to where I could kneel and my neck wasn't, like my face wasn't in the water.
We just laid in the shallow water.
Yeah, we just laid there for probably half an hour.
I think we'd hate the thought of shallow water even.
Yeah.
Like any water should have freaked us out, but we just laid.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, my legs were so tired that I couldn't walk on them. Like, that's how tired they were. I've never had that. I've never experienced that before. Like, I had to crawl out on my knees and my hands. For the first like 10 minutes, we just like said absolutely nothing. It was just like, there was no need for words.
Like, we got on the shore and I think it was a little while later, like, I don't know, 10 minutes or something. I just kind of asked him lightheartedly, hey, did you get your lure? Like, kind of a joke. And he said he did have it. He had it in his fist the whole time.
Yeah.
Swimming with a fist. I guess didn't even think about it.
Yeah, and it's got hooks on it. Like this is jumping back just a little bit. I remember thinking that, like I said, there was some dark thoughts going through my mind. Like, obviously, like death and all that stuff. Like, but what really was insane to me, what blew my mind, was I was literally thinking, like, my mind was literally telling me to give up. I was so exhausted that I remember thinking to myself, why am I doing this? Why am I putting forth this much effort and I'm not even gonna make it anyway? I should just give up now. I should just let go.
We knew we were gonna drown. Like, just somehow we knew it.
Yeah. When you're that exhausted, you stop thinking rationally. You stop thinking like, hey, I've got family. Like, hey, I've got friends. All you're thinking about is your survivalness.
I think that's when I went down the first time.
It's insane to think about that you can get to a level of exhaustion where it's like your mind is saying like it's easier to quit. Like, you should just give up. When you're that tired that your survival instinct isn't even working, that is mind-blowing.
Like, your survival instinct is the strongest thing you have pretty much at that point, and yet our depression was even stronger. Like,
this is the incredible part. Walking out, I pulled out my phone and I'm like, someday I'm gonna want to remember this. And I pulled out my phone and I started talking to it, and I still have them actually. So I'll go ahead and play those for you right now.
Yeah. I think it's a catch up now. Oh yeah, I've played it. So me and Caleb literally almost just drowned, and I'm not making this up. I basically casted my lure, my frog here, and it hit Caleb's line and flew out into the water. So I determined to swim out and get it. And halfway back or so, I started losing it and started taking on water. And Caleb was an amazing superhero and swam out and saved me. We've almost both drowned. I'm not making this up. Like, we almost both drowned. So glad to be alive. I can now say that this lure literally almost killed me. It's kind of interesting. People always talk about, you know, how do you drown swimming? Like, literally, it is so easy. It almost happened to us. Like, it happened so fast. Like, when I turned around and started swimming back, I was like, I'm a little tired. I got this though. And then you're just like, there's no way. Like, and like Caleb was saying, we're starting to think, you know, like, let's just give up. Like, your brain is saying, this is not even worth the to spend this much energy, it's too hard, let's just like give up. Like that's literally where your brain starts going when you're in that moment. So it's a very real thing. Like don't ever take chances when you're swimming, because if Caleb wouldn't have been there, I would have drowned. Like I have no doubt in my mind. So don't, like, be very careful out there, guys.
Fear is what keeps us alive, but it can often be the first thing to kill us. Coming back to everybody else, like we told no one, absolutely no one, and it was a weird feeling, like, because after going through that, like your mind, like everything is just like spinning this giant circle, and the only way you can make sense and like communicate that to someone is to talk with the person you actually went through it with. So I'm really curious, like, you were the one who like lightheartedly even like said that I should like go out and swim out to it. Like, what's that like now? Or like even when you're going out there, like were you thinking about like, I'm the one who like did this? Like obviously it was my decision, and I'm not putting any weight on Caleb for that. It was my decision completely to go swim out there, and I take complete responsibility for that. But it's still that thing of like, do you feel at all responsible for that?
I think it was to like, once I started panicking, that's when I started thinking, you know, I was the one who, I told him to go out there and get it, and now this is what came of it. And I just can't imagine what it'd be like if either of us had gotten out of there and the other person was left.
Yeah.
Like, how?
Like, I didn't understand this until now. If Caleb had swam out to me even 5 seconds earlier, we both would have been at the point of exhaustion a good 10 or 15 feet before we landed to the shore, and we would have drowned. Or if he had waited 5 seconds, I would have sank and I would have died. How many other people that I know have gone through an experience like this who just never shared it and just kept it a secret like we've done pretty much? It just really makes me curious, like, are there other people out there, like, tell someone, especially if it's something you went through by yourself. Like, this is incredibly shameful because it was all my decision to go out there. Every bit of blame is on me, and the fact that I lost it, like, just panic mode, like, that is shameful. Like, I hate that. But living with that cooped up, especially if you went through an experience by yourself and you have no one to talk to about it, that is like so much worse. So that's one of the biggest things I would emphasize. Is,
yeah, I told no one for an entire year.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like,
glad to be alive.
Yep.
It's unnerving, and that's what this video isn't, to bring attention to us like as people or to my YouTube channel. This is a way for us to express it to everybody that we know.
Then this past year, we went down to the beach and had a campfire down on the beach with our youth group.
Yeah. Probably like 20 of us.
And me and Austin, I just remember looking at him and being like, we drowned like right next to here. Like almost drowned. We almost drowned right next to this beach. And yet here we are sitting here having a campfire a year later.
And like nobody knows. Like nobody knew. Like, it's such a weird feeling because you want to scream it to the world, but you don't know how. Like, you don't even know where to begin. Like, I hope we didn't forget any details. Really think stuff through. Think of the consequences before you do something. Don't ever judge someone for something that they went through, because you don't, unless you've gone through the same thing, because you don't understand it. And you have no right to make any sort of judgment or accusation or advice to what they should do differently. Like, that is uncalled for and it should not be done. So hopefully this video kind of pricked you a little bit, and I hope you enjoyed it. Although I'm not sure anyone could enjoy this topic. I certainly did not enjoy telling it. Not fun to relive those moments, but necessary.